This is the Orange Box, a 2007 collection containing some of the most revered games in history. It was released as sort of an apology from the studio Valve for their late development of Half-Life 2 Episode 2, which, despite moving to an episodic release for this exact purpose, both episodes still took much longer than planned. But there was also two other original games included. One of them was TF2, and the other one was a simple experience known as Portal. I was 2 in 2007, so I didn't get a chance to play Portal for another couple of years, probably around 2013 or early 2014. Suffice to say, I was definitely in no fit shape to be playing a game with so much atmosphere and emptiness, and I likely only watched my older siblings actually get farther than just the first couple test chambers, and instead I would revisit its sequel and fall in love with that. Maybe I've written off the first game as growing pains, but just now I've revisited it in perhaps the last 2 years, and now I've come back with more to say. Despite its oddities and unique designs, somehow this new franchise packed into a series of much more bombastic titles would go down as the mainstay for this collection. As its predecessors would go free to play or be included in packs, Portal would only receive one sequel, yet its impact would remain all the same. Portal was initially just a humble student project made by a team of 8 named Narbacular Drop. It went through a lengthy development centered around nonsensical spaces interacting with other objects, and this would manifest itself in a couple of different ways. Beginning as a hide-and-seek game and ending on a puzzler, these radical changes and lack of resources ended in a bit of a lackluster finished product with a few bits of greatness hidden inside. Finally getting to play this myself, I had a bit of a frustrating time. So many elements stick out for the wrong reasons. Character and environmental designs feel a million miles away. Princess Noni's and the dungeon she's trapped in have very little in common and look like random assets all mashed into the same experience, and very little effort was posed into making the map feel diegetic or having a real threat in them, so it's lacking some paranoia which drive its predecessors, and it ends up feeling mostly empty. There's also a fair share of jank, usually around these boulders, or the bad lighting, or the noisy Portal designs, but even with each of these problems, the main mechanic of Portal still somehow surmounts them. Looking at others' thoughts from around the time, many seem to agree, although from a Valve higher-up named Robin Walker, these thoughts must have felt much more important. With that growing connection to Valve, they'd learned of the ecstatic response towards their demo, and it was clear what everyone wanted, but none of what was in their demo could be used because the university took ownership of most elements, and thus brainstorming on a new concept, new environment, and new story had to be done. While nothing was explicitly taken, it's clear that they saw much inspiration in certain elements of the original, whether it be buttons, boxes, non-portable areas, boulders, or controllable lava turtles. Eventually, this process would lead them into a simple story between a woman and a robot. From its start, Portal grips you with intentions. Where am I? Who am I? Why am I here? Why are there people presumably watching me? The first minute in this game is so geniusly designed. With the portals being out of your control, you're forced to just sit back and absorb the empty frosted windows, padded bleak colors, mysterious cameras following your every move, and an inconsiderate radio playing a joyful track without care to its actual environment. From the beginning, it's actually unclear whether the voice talking to you is even human at all, or a pre-recorded track or a robot or anything. Right as the portals open up, you get your first view of an actual human presence, yet Shell is completely silent, and times when you get an actual view of her become very scarce until you get the dual portal device. As the facility and game unfold, you witness more, yet the mysteries posed by this first minute ring around the air for nearly the entire time. Exploring these white rooms dotted with splotches of red signaling importance, distress, or danger. Insurmountable steel edges adorned with holes containing some odd orange light of heat. Under these raising panels contain the same hues, almost like the environment itself is warning you of the hidden evil under the veneer of objective testing. Eventually it becomes obvious that the voice over the speaker is indeed its own character, and as your testing stretches on, it becomes more questionable who it really could be. The only voices you hear throughout are some random turret babble or the distant speeches of some crazed person before you. Well, at first, her intentions are mysterious. Chamber 19 and after display her personality quite well. On replay, it was actually kind of surprising how desperate she was to try and get you back. I think I'm too Portal 2-brained to remember just how powerless she becomes after this point. If the test chambers were already lacking in some odd way that made them feel off, the behind the scenes at Aperture expand out in claustrophobia. The Ratman dens are brief previews of these much earlier on. Instead of odd silence, the whirring of machinery and heavy industry collapse together with a soft backing of whispering spirits lost in the factory, yet the design itself never suffers. There's always a clear direction of vertical movement, whether that's up or down, that always keeps you on the right path. And this was always my favorite part of the game. It's very, very impressive how gripping the story gets to this point. Before, the lack of any activity besides one voice seemed odd, but actually exploring these empty hallways and deserted offices brings a whole new layer to the mystery. And finally, when you arrive to witness the writhing cables of Gladys, the game almost revels in the amount of cards it plays with its hand. Essentially, all story elements are revealed and all the questions pile up are put on the table in this final encounter. Really, the only problem I have with it is the lack of real puzzle elements and kind of how it doesn't really bring that much from what you saw before. I mean, sure, you use portals, some momentum, and this rocket turret you kind of encountered, but I think it'd be cool if maybe the rooms slowly change around you to encompass different puzzles using cubes or disarming turrets or even just energy pellets to get rid of each core. Maybe something that could be taken from the past part of the game. But it's impressive, really, the coherence of design and consistency of this experience, no matter how short it truly is. The mechanic of portals really wouldn't work with any other studio because of Valve's main motivator for their single-player offerings. These games are not black boxes, where inputs are strange. Instead, the player is given power to literally bend the game's universe to their will, bypassing most of Gladys's powers. The theme of influence is juggled from one end to the other. You have no influence on the wills of the facility before gaining your own independence, and even when bullet-spewing turrets are introduced, the gun that does no damage is even more powerful than they can imagine. Despite its modest origins, what this small team of developers was able to accomplish with such a short amount of time and such a small amount of expectations is genuinely worth striving for. When put up against its brothers, it doesn't appear as weaker, but actually much, much stronger. The scope of its design are meek in comparison, yet all that it implies vastly carries its structure, and the question it leaves unanswered shine through your mind on the first playthrough. The entire game is effectively a manifestation of showing you the world instead of explaining it. Gordon Freeman was their first attempt to have the world speak its own language, yet Portal showcases a considerably higher standard, not even allowing Gladys and Shell to interact in any genuine, real way. Yet, still, a big community formed around him. Sure, today, the cake and the companion cube and, of course, Hoopy the Hoop may be seen as tired jokes from a bygone era, but they're still proof of the profound feeling that this game gives off. Its atmospheric storytelling is really second to none, and the puzzle mechanics are some of the most complex, yet accessible in the entire genre. The shortfalls of Narbacular Drop were somehow not extradited, but removed completely, and both games carry the same mechanics and spirit, but only one could be among the greatest of all time, while still not even being my favorite in its respective series.